That's 5 in a row now. Celtics lose to the Knicks 185. This is the Gardner Report on Celticsblog and CLNS Radio. His hair looks great. This is the Gardner Report, Celticsblog, CLNS Radio. My name is Jared Weiss. With me, as always, Jimmy Toscano, and his name is Evans Clinchy. They both are from Celticsblog. I'm from CLNS Radio. We're going to take a look at really the only two people that mattered in this game, J.R. Smith and Carmelo Anthony. And then we'll take a look at the Jordan Crawford as a starting shooting guard experiment. That had a lot of results that we can go over. And then we'll ball out at the end, and then we'll do our all-scare team. We'll catch you up on what the heck that means if you didn't hear what happened in the pregame press conference. But first, let's take a look at what Melo and J.R. Smith did tonight. J.R. Smith, efficient, Melo, inefficient. Jimmy, am I in Bizarro world, or what's going on tonight?
No, you were right with those two words describing those guys, but they both dropped 30, or 32 and 29, or whatever it was. I mean, however many shots it took, they got their points. The Celtics, 85 points tonight. I mean, you could have just put Melo and J.R. Smith there, and it would have been still a fairly competitive game points-wise. I mean, those two guys led the way the entire game. I mean, the Celtics kept it close for the first quarter, and then when the Knicks went on that 14-0 run in the second quarter, midway through, I mean, after that, it was never a game, and those two guys were big reasons why.
All right. I mean, it's easy to look at the box score and see big numbers and talk about it, but I'm really not impressed by Melo or J.R. Smith tonight.
Really?
I mean, start with Melo. You give me 30 shots, I'm going to score 25.
That's not true at all.
29 is not that. I mean, come on.
But why did he get that many shots?
He got that many
Because
shots.
the
It's
Celtics
what he does.
No,
it's what he does.
No,
it's what
it's
Carmelo
right,
Anthony does.
No, he's absolutely a high volume shooter.
He plays
He's
basketball.
absolutely a high volume shooter. But if he's going to take 30 shots a game, then and he's good enough to hit. Well, tonight he only hit 10, but it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter because he got his 29
A
points.
lot of Carmelo's shots, he was just rushing him in the first 5 seconds of the shot clock just because.
But some of those
how many
shots-
times did he bring the ball to the floor and just launch a three right away? Like, he went 2 for 8 on those threes.
Okay.
Like, I don't know.
30 shot attempts for Melo, 24 for Smith, but a lot of those were on those second chance shot attempts. They went 12 for 15, the Knicks did, on second chance, and you can't tell me that all they're doing is hoisting threes or long twos. No, like some of those field goal attempts are at the basket off offensive rebounds. So you can't sit there and say it was one of those, chuck 'em up games for the Knicks all game, because it really wasn't. They played solid defense tonight, obviously. They scored from outside, they scored from inside, they outscored the Celtics 29-6 on second chance points.
But the second chance points, that's not just Melo and J.R. Smith.
I know it is,
doing their
but
thing.
they obviously had
Chris
something to do with
Copeland
that.
played 13 minutes and had 5 rebounds. Jason Kidd had 6 boards. I mean, it's a whole team effort when you crush the Celtics on the glass like that. I mean, it's not just J.R. Smith and Carmelo doing their thing.
The big
They're
thing
finding those guys.
It was 10 offensive rebounds, though, from Melo and J.R. I mean, that was what was huge, was that there were a lot of guys, especially backcourt players, I thought, that were not hitting their box-out assignments tonight for the Celtics.
Right.
There's a lot of missed box-outs. There were so many plays where whether it was Wilcox or even guys like Bradley and Crawford, that they were letting guys slip behind them on the baseline, especially Kenny Martin. Kenny Martin, I thought, he had 4 offensive rebounds. I thought pretty much all of those were him just kind of sneaking around the box-out guy, going baseline and grabbing it out of nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, Kenyon Martin was the starting big man against, front line of Brandon Bass and Jeff Green. He's doing his job in that matchup. I mean,
it's true.
And I mean, as for J.R. Smith, I mean, he's got Jordan Crawford on him, who's an energetic, relentless defender. If you got the ball, he's going to be all over you. But if you pass or if you have a pick or a screen coming at you, he's got no clue what to do. He's getting lost every time. So, I mean, that explains J.R. Smith's points, and it also explains him cutting to the basket and getting offensive rebounds, too.
And off that, I mean, there's a size differential there. I mean, Smith is a matchup problem for a lot of guys in the Celtics. I mean, because he's bigger. I mean, he's bigger against Crawford. He's bigger against Bradley. I mean, unless you're going to put Jeff Green or Paul Pierce on him, which takes them off their, the guys like Melo and Shumpert or whoever. Smith's going to have the advantage there. And tonight, 13 for 24. I mean, you take 24 shots, that's a lot of shots, but you'll take 13 for 24 every single night, especially from J.R. Smith.
All right, well, let's hear what Doc had to say about J.R. Smith. More praise than he had for his own backcourt, that's for sure.
Rightfully so.
Unbelievable shots,
But he also found his way.
Yeah, he beat us off the dribble. He made shots. Again, I thought their small lineup attacked ours. Our small lineup settled. I thought even our drives, when we did drive, I thought we were driving away from the basket. When they drove at the basket. And, I always think that team gets the benefit, when they're driving. I thought they played the game with more force than us.
So JR just hit unbelievable shots, but the big thing was that the small lineup, as Doc said, was much more effective for the Knicks. A lot of that had to do with Celtics turnovers, but I mean, what did you see tonight out of the Knicks perimeter?
I mean, also the Knicks' small lineup is not that small. Like Jason Kidd plays like a, small forward. He's a big tough guy. J.R. Smith, same thing. Like Chris Copeland, he gets in the paint and gets dirty. Like their small guys aren't really small guys. The Celtics, their small guys are just small. Like Avery Bradley is small.
Yeah.
So it's a hard matchup for the Celtics.
And that's without Courtney Lee, of course.
Yeah.
All the guys in the Celtics are small. They don't have any big men. That's why they can't rebound. That's why they can't get offensive rebounds. That's why they are so dominated on second chance points. When you don't have Kevin Garnett and you have like Brandon Bass as your center, he's not a center.
When Jeff Green jumps for the opening tip, you have problems.
Right. Shavlik Randolph, DJ White. These guys aren't centers. None of them are centers.
None of them are centers.
So to say that the Celtics small ball lineup was outscored or was mismatched by the Knicks, that's not the Celtics small lineup. That's just their lineup. They're all small.
Their
that's
only
the biggest
center is
problem
Chris
with this
Wilcox,
team.
and Chris Wilcox played 9 minutes.
And he wasn't
there you
effective at
go.
all. And I thought that
Yeah.
DJ White should have played much earlier in the game than he did, which was just garbage minutes towards the end of the game. I don't understand why. It's a home game. You're looking for something to come back on. I don't know why you sit on DJ White for so long. I mean, he's on the team now. I mean, it's good to get him some burn in a situation like that. He didn't play poorly in Memphis. He was a part of that lineup that came all the way back in the fourth quarter. So I think it would have been nice to at least see what he could do out there because obviously the Celtics bigs weren't effective tonight.
All right, well, Jordan Crawford was sometimes effective, sometimes extremely the opposite of effective, because it wasn't that he was ineffective, it's that he was detrimental. Let's hear what Jordan and Doc had to say after the game.
It wasn't that he was bad, he was just bad.
Murph, that's why we traded for him. When you lose Barbosa, who was pretty much good on nights and some nights bad, we looked at who could do the same things. And, Jordan is the perfect character for that role, when you think about him. We laugh, but he is on the all-scare team. He scares me and Woody, every night. He scares both coaches. But he's been, the one thing he does so much better than he has ever gotten credit for, maybe he did, I don't know, because I wasn't in Washington. He's a far better passer. He sees things that only point guards can see. Sometimes he makes that pass, unfortunately, and no one else sees it. But he can really, he's a playmaker. He's more than just a scorer. And I honestly didn't know that. So that's been a refreshing surprise.
What's that dynamic like? That you want him to be aggressive. You want him to be a scorer, but at the same time, he's passing the ball so well.
Well, I don't want to get in his way. We don't have time to change him or coach him to a point where he fits the exact role or way you want him to play. And so, it's what I've done. When you get a player this late in the year, you just tell them, just go play. Don't get him, I won't get in your way. If you're doing something too much, I'll let you know. But I don't want to get in his way at all. I want him to go out and just play, be him. And if something we don't like, we'll take him out. But I just want him to play free.
How important is it for you to have the freedom that Doc gives you on offense, not trying to restrict anything you do, and he always talks about just letting you kind of do whatever you do best out there?
Don't understand that question.
Well, Doc says that he doesn't want to give you too many, instructions out there. He just wants you to kind of go play. How nice is it to have that freedom?
Don't understand the question.
Well, we could talk about your passing a little bit then, because he had 6 assists tonight, and Doc also said that that's something underrated part of your game that people don't see too often. Can you talk a bit about kind of your playmaking ability on top of your scoring?
Yeah, when the guy's open, you give him the ball. That's kind of how basketball works. So,
Do you think people maybe dissociate the part of you too often, though? They see you just as a scorer, but you also have that other element to your game?
Well, if you watch the game, you would see it, That's how it goes.
Okay, so Jordan, he scored a lot of points. His efficiency numbers actually weren't that terrible, but 6 assists, which is good, and 6 turnovers. And if there was a stat for blown defensive assignments or screwing over your team basically by trying to help off your guy, he definitely broke a few records tonight.
Yeah. I will say that offensively, I've been pleasantly surprised by Jordan Crawford. Coming from the Wizards, and he had this, knucklehead reputation, and you assumed he'd be just chucking mad shots, second coming of Nate Robinson, or whatever you want to call it. But he seems to be kind of getting into the flow of the offense and filling his role pretty admirably. The guy takes a shot when it's there, and he had a lot of open looks tonight, and he knocked him down. And when he doesn't have an open look, he makes the right pass, and he's been overall pretty decent. The turnovers, yeah, he got a little bit careless here and there, and he tried to make some flashy passes that didn't work. But overall, he's been surprisingly half decent. Defense, terrible. I'm done.
Terrible is a strong word. I mean, terrible is
It's
a
the
strong
correct
word. Tonight, obviously, if you're just going to look at tonight, it wasn't this great game. But I don't think Celtics as a whole played a great defense tonight at all. I mean, I think Crawford had a better game than Terry did. I mean, Terry didn't do anything tonight, too, but we're not saying anything about Terry. But
He's bad, too.
He was bad, too. I mean, and obviously, and I've said this before, Crawford, we're harder on Crawford because of, the baggage that he came to Boston with. But they got 41 minutes out of this guy tonight. If anything, he's taking minutes from guys like Terry and guys that you really don't want to be throwing out there for 30, 40 plus minutes in a game where you're not going to win it anyway. So, I mean, I still think that was a good trade by the Celtics. I still think Doc, I still think Doc likes what he's seen out of Crawford, like you said. Yeah. Because he has been pleasant. It's been a pleasant surprise offensively. He does take some crazy shots, but I'd say a high percentage of those actually go in. As crazy as it seems. Yeah. So, I mean, what's Doc going to say? Don't take them? I mean, sometimes you need a shot like that to fall your way to spark the team in another direction.
And there's been a couple plays where there's 2 seconds on the shot clock and he has to pull it from 30 feet and he's hit it. A la J.R. Smith, as I'm sure we'll get to in a second.
Yeah. Sure.
But he when they need someone to bail them out, he's one of those guys that can do it. He's a gunner, is what they do. But there were so many plays, both him and Pierce tonight, where they tried to drive down the right side and then kick out to a guy in the elbow, and it'd get picked off by Shumpert or Kidd easily, turn into fast break, either foul, points, whatever. And that led to Jeff Green getting into foul trouble because he was the one trying to catch up and committing some fouls there. So the turnovers on the perimeter was what really killed them tonight.
One of many things, yeah.
Sure. All right, well, let's go into Baller of the Night. It's really simple. Basically, what we do is we decide whether or not Carmelo Anthony or J.R. Smith were the best players in tonight's game. Evans, will start with you.
My Baller of the Night is Kevin Garnett because he had the good sense to stay home and not watch this atrocious basketball game. I'm done. Move on.
I'm not going to go with Melo or J.R. Smith.
Really?
I'm going with...
You're not making the right call, so you're on your own here.
Kenyon Martin.
Wow.
Okay.
Kenyon Martin. And I'll tell you why. Because if Kenyon Martin was in the Celtics in this game, they might have won it. Okay?
True.
Wow.
So that's my baller of the night. And the Celtics dropped the ball by not picking this guy when they had a chance. They had a roster spot open. I think they may have even had 2 roster spots open. I was talking about this with Brian Robb from Celtics Hub during the game because we were just saying, wow, if Martin was
watching the game.
Right, it was better than watching the game at that point. We said, well, the Celtics didn't want to pick him up, most likely because they wanted those spots open in case they made a big trade. They didn't make the trade. The Knicks picked him up at the deadline, and now the Celtics are screwed because a night like tonight is a perfect example of when they could use a guy like Kenyon Martin. He came in. He was more of a presence down low than anyone in the Celtics. And the numbers don't really, they're not going to jump out at you, but he had 2 putback dunks, I think, and he had a couple good boards, and he was a presence out there. And the Celtics lacked that tonight, and that's a baller of a night because the Celtics screwed themselves and put one in the loss column because of it.
You really think that they kept the roster spot open because of a trade?
I think that they're leaving it open for the possibility that they may have made the spot.
If you're desperate for a roster spot, then trade Fab Melo for a second rounder. I don't see why that roster spot's a big deal.
I don't know. I don't know either. I'm not defending them at all. I just can't think of any other reason why they wouldn't have signed the guy to a 10-day
Well, my question is, what if they did try, but Kenyon Martin wanted to play for the Knicks instead of the Celtics because the Knicks are a better fit for him and a better team?
But this was before the Knicks were even, I mean, the Knicks picked him up at the deadline. What about before then? It wasn't
maybe he didn't want to go to Boston. Who knows?
The word on the street.
You didn't want to go to a contender?
Well, the word
Who's a contender? The Celtics or the Knicks? Come on.
The Celtics weren't a contender. They're not a contender at all. They're not an Eastern Conference contender. The Knicks are far and away better than the Celtics, according to Evans. I don't think so.
They're actually 15 points better than the Celtics.
I don't think the Knicks are far and away better than the Celtics.
They're also how many wins better? 6?
But we're talking about, but think about at the deadline, the Celtics weren't just going through a 5-game losing streak. They were a hot team.
They were.
Kenyon Martin doesn't have teams lining up for him. I'm sure if the Celtics called, he would have picked it up and he would have been on his way to Boston the second they say, hey, sign here.
I mean, Kenyon Martin's been the best free agent all year, and the Celtics have peaked at 7th in the East. Why is he coming to Boston? What's in it for him?
Beggars can't be choosers. That's why.
He's not a beggar. He's the best free agent in the league.
Yes,
sorry, I
at
don't
the
see it.
trade deadline.
I
That's a
think your
little
definition
different.
of best is a little
Yeah,
bit shaky
it's by
there.
process of elimination. Do you want to see
Okay,
the other
we're
list?
gonna
of
Right,
guys?
but-
everyone shut up now. We're gonna move on. But just for the record, one of the issues with Martin is that he was asking for too much money, and a lot of teams passed on him because
At the
you
beginning
wanted
of the
more
year.
than the
At the
minimum
beginning of the
early.
year.
Even during the year, that was the case, reportedly.
So he took the minimum for the Knicks, but not for
Yeah.
anybody else.
But he did say a couple things. Was it yesterday? Kind of saying all the teams out there that passed on me, you're gonna regret it.
Yeah.
Apparently, the Celtics are one of those teams that are regretting it right now.
Hell yeah, they are.
All right,
Yeah.
so
And that's why he's the baller.
So before
That's a good one. I
Who's
like
your
it.
baller?
J.R. Smith.
Okay. You don't even need to talk about him again.
13 for 24. He had 7 rebounds for them offensive,
don't
3
care.
steals, and he hit
Too
like a
easy.
He hit a pull-up 45-footer. So that kind of locks it in there
That-
for me.
30. It was actually 29. I looked in the box score.
So
And that was a huge
They
shot,
apparently
actually.
don't know how to count feet. They think that's 29
That was a
feet.
huge shot.
Okay, so before the game, Doc Rivers was talking about Jordan Crawford, and he said that Jordan Crawford is on his all-scare team, which are guys that just scare you every time they're on the court. So I thought we'd quickly just throw together an all-scare team. You mentioned Nate Robinson before.
Nate Robinson's a great one,
I'm
yeah.
thinking DeMarcus Cousins is a good one, just because you don't know if he's going to get himself kicked out before halftime. So that's 3 guys right there. Can you throw 2 more on there for me, Jimmy?
I can throw Artest for sure.
Okay, that's
Artest
good.
is scary in numerous ways. Just ask the fans in Indiana. But even on the court, he's scary.
In
because-
Detroit, I probably asked them.
Detroit, sorry, Detroit. Or Indiana knows too. I mean, they lost a
Yeah.
guy for the season.
Yeah.
But no, but I mean, he's a guy on the court. I mean, he'll huck up a shot that you're scratching your head, a three-pointer out of nowhere, and it'll clank off the rim, or randomly it'll go in. I mean,
Or I'll
really
punch
don't-
you in the balls. I mean, you have no idea what's going to happen.
Or pull your
One of
shorts
those
down, right?
things. Yeah.
But I mean, that's a scary. Who else? Is there anybody else? Robinson,
John
Crawford.
Lucas is a good one. J.R. Smith. Did we talk about
Oh,
him
J.R.
yet?
Smith.
Yeah.
J.R. Smith. J.R. Smith's scary, but tonight he was scary good.
It's often guards because they're taking these long jump shots and it's so inconsistent from
Right.
night to night whether they make them. How about Derek Fisher? I mean, you bring him in for his leadership or wisdom or whatever, and then he misses
Ooh,
5
yeah.
threes.
Yeah,
Like,
and
that's
then he
pretty
asked-
scary.
Or you bring him in to piss off Mark Cuban, either one of
No,
those.
yeah,
Whatever.
you bring him in, he misses 5 days, and then he asks to be, released by the team.
to spend more
Yeah.
time with his family so he can sign with somebody else next week. Yeah, whatever.
right.
Well, Derek Fisher hasn't made a 3 in like 2 weeks now or something like that, but that's not going to stop Scott Brooks from putting him at the front of the rotation.
Yeah.
So maybe Scott Brooks gets a nomination for the coach of the All-Star
There you
team.
go. I love it.
All right, well, we're going to wrap this one up. It's a little bit of a shorter one because we like to keep things nice and concise for you. And the Celtics tried to keep it concise and made the game pretty much over by the 7-minute mark tonight. So that was nice of them to let everybody go to bed early.
charitable.
So Celtics lose 100-85. We'll see you on Friday night when they play the Hawks. And it looks like they might even be fighting for that 7 seed to not have to face the Miami Heat at that
Oh,
point.
yeah.
We'll see what happens. Very slim lead over Milwaukee right now.
Game and
So
a half.
for Evans Clinchy and Jimmy Toscano, my name is Jared Weiss. This is the Garden Report on Celticsblog, CLNS Radio.
That was terrible.